Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being here today, coming out on this beautiful day. I'm glad we got a beautiful day when I can give my talk. I do want to also offer a special welcome. We do have some first-timers here, at least at the Miracle Center. At least the first time I've seen them here. Stephen and Ed are here, so welcome. Stephen is here by way of Sedona, and Ed is here by way of everywhere. Hey!
See that?
Ed's calling his
panel. That's what I gave Rudy at the conference last week.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, thank you. Oh, you gifted us the crystal.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You gifted. Oh,
Wow.
magnificent. Does that have any special significance? I know sometimes they have
It
different.
came from a place in Mount Shasta called Glass Mountain when it erupted and it created the lava and the sand created the obsidian. It's called it's an area, it's rainbow obsidian.
Rainbow obsidian. Oh, perfect for us. Rainbow. Yes, we love that. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Straight down here.
all right. So as I shared with, all right, it's time for everyone to calm down now, Rudy. Okay. You know, I am a teacher. I'm used to dealing with, behavior issues. Especially ADHD, dear. Okay? No.
Squared.
Yeah. So no, I was sharing. I woke up today inspired. I'm so grateful for that. You know, that's the vein I'm in, and I shared that with some folks coming in, and I'm feeling really good. So interesting enough, you know, as all of you know, to me it's always fascinating how I and others who come up here arrive at their talks for today. And the title of my talk is Skepticism, a Healthy Habit for an Awakening Mind. Now, I actually searched the Course in Miracles, the original edition, for skepticism, and the word actually does not appear one time in A Course in Miracles. So that gave me pause to think, well, maybe I shouldn't be sharing about it, but I said, nah. Let's talk a little bit about what the word means. First of all, the origin of the word is Greek, skeptomai, skeptomai, and it means to look carefully and to reflect. Now, everybody in this room is a reflector. Everybody in this room you wouldn't be in this room if you were not someone that looked at your life and the things that are going on in your life and try to seek some kind of spiritual meaning from that. Mm-hmm. So far we're okay. All right? A skeptic is a person inclined to question or doubt all accepted opinion. Now, remember, we live in this perceptual world. It's a world of senses, the five senses. And oftentimes we have beliefs that are based on what our senses tell us. But many of us in here know that there are other senses that we have as well that perhaps are invisible. Or that at times the senses tell us one thing. Think of the time when the world believed that the world was flat, right? Mm-hmm. The senses, because that's as far as we could see. But then as we developed and opened our minds and technology, we saw, in fact, the world wasn't flat. Oh, and in fact, it is not even the center of the universe, right? So our senses don't always tell us what's true, so skepticism seems to me to be a good thing. Skepticism, the history of skepticism was the ancient Greeks, and as those of you that know, I was a classics minor in college. I love the ancient Greek culture, very inspiring to me. I just, at this point, I just have to say, I must have been around at that time because I resonate with Socrates and Plato and all those guys, back then. And when I would read it in college, I was like the one that would actually sit there and read the readings on the dialogues, the Plato's dialogues, and get inspired. So skepticism is actually a philosophical position that one should refrain from making truth claims and avoid the idea of final truths. Mm-hmm. And it was in response at that time to another philosophical idea called Stoicism. And Stoicism said that reason could develop for us truths, absolute truths that we should believe in. And skepticism came along and said, I don't know about that. And basically, Socrates, although he wasn't identified in the skepticism philosophy, he sums it up with this statement, which I really relate to. The only thing I know is that I know nothing. Now, is that not a Course in Miracles idea that we come to the world, we come to our spiritual practice, emptying our minds of what we thought we knew, so that we may be able to embrace the new? Okay, now here is the real reason behind my talk for today and why I wanted to talk about skepticism. So, I had a couple events this week that kind of triggered this, or over the last 10 days or so. I was actually on the internet reading, sometimes I'm kind of like, I'm a Course in Miracles student, but I'm also kind of a closet case investigator of other spiritual thought systems and spiritual ideas. So I'm coming out of the closet today. Yes, I read about other spiritual thought systems and all that, just to see what they're saying as well. And I came across one that was really disturbing this week. It was called, there's a conspiracy theory about A Course in Miracles, okay? And this is the conspiracy. And I have to tell you, the only reason I'm sharing with it, because it really shook me up. It says that the CIA was actually behind the Course in Miracles because it was trying to attempt to control our minds, to pacify us in the face of a government. And the theory behind this is that Bill Thetford several times received grant funding from the CIA, and that is true. And actually, so did Helen Schucman. So I was, really concerned about this. And the idea of the Course in Miracles was they were going to put it out there to pacify leftists. Okay, now I'm kind of a leftist, all right? I'm politically liberal, and I'm for an activist government that meets the needs of the people. And I thought, oh my God, this applies to me. Ever since I've been studying A Course in Miracles, I'm less politically active than I used to be. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So then, but I dug a little bit deeper, and what I found is that the CIA actually, just like any government, the government funds most of our academic research. Throughout history, it has done that. Now, corporations are taking over a lot of that too, but the government has always been a big funder. So what I found in my research is that it actually funded a lot of healthy research by psychologists, and one of them was by Helen and Bill. So one of the things that they studied was what was called the personality assessment system. And this later became an intelligence test. It's called the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scales, which is something actually that we use in my profession. I teach students with learning disabilities and various disabilities, and they get various kinds of intelligence tests, which are not, at this point, supposed to be biased. Some of them are biased. This one is supposed to be not. And this one, actually, the Wechsler, is supposed to be a credible one. And what they were studying was how people with their different intelligences, and that just means strengths and talent. It doesn't mean like how well you do in the SATs, okay? But with our various strengths and our various weaknesses, how we form personality. I said, oh, okay, that's okay. I can get that. And just so you know, another person who was funded by the CIA was a gentleman by the name of Carl Rogers. And Carl Rogers is a famous secular humanist psychologist who came up with the idea of unconditional positive regard. You may have heard that somewhere along your line. It's basically the same idea that Jesus taught about unconditional love, and it's the same. It's a approach in psychotherapy where that's what you do. So anyway, so that's what my research told me. Now there's another side. There's a whole other side. If you want to research it, go ahead. But it was kind of enough for me. But the reason that I was kind of triggered by this was because, again, I do have my political leanings, and the CIA, I've traveled to other countries, I've traveled to South and Central America, I've heard people that live there, Americans that live there, talk about the role the CIA plays. It's not very nice. It's written in history, you can study the history if you want, it's not very nice. And so what I had to decide for myself, well, it's like anything else. Any other human being, any other human institution has positives, has the dark side, has the positive side. And, and I just had to say for myself, okay, that's fine. That yes, they were funded by this organization that I have a lot of issues with, but at the same time, the Holy Spirit was working through them and some really good things came out of it. Now, what is also important is that it also allowed me to question A Course in Miracles. And it allowed me to be free of some of my ideas about the Course in Miracles. And I think that's healthy. The Course in Miracles itself challenges us and says it's okay to be skeptical. In the Course in Miracles it says in the very beginning, you don't have to believe any of this. Don't believe it. Just try it and see if it works for you. We've had a lot of students that do that. We've had a lot of people that don't believe in God, atheists, agnostics, come to A Course in Miracles. They didn't want anything to do with the God stuff. They didn't want anything to do with that. But they tried to practice it, and they found it improved their lives. You don't even have to believe that Helen Schucman was, that Jesus was a channel for Helen Schucman. You don't have to believe any of that. It's not part of it. You do not have to join a group, so it doesn't have to be a cult. All right? You don't have to look at it as a cult. So the Course in Miracles now, for myself and for some of us in here, I needed this organization. I moved across the country to study in this organization because at that time where I was living, there wasn't A Course in Miracles and I was drawn to it. There wasn't a Course in Miracles study group. But you don't have to have a study group. You can study this. It's set up so you can study it on your own if you so choose, if that's what works for you. So it's not something that there's nothing that is actually required for you to study this. All you need is the book and yourself and spirit, and that can be it. It's up to you. So anyway, this was kind of interesting, but the thing that it provoked in me was this idea that you can understand the Course in Miracles, and your understanding can evolve over time of what it means. So for many years, as I was studying A Course in Miracles, I thought I was, trained under this notion that, you're troubled by some perception, right? My work colleagues are one of my biggest challenges that I have. I supervise them. And they're big challenges for me. And so I would pray and ask for a change of perception, change to see them differently, blah, blah, blah. And for years, that's what I worked under the assumption. And it kind of worked, on some level. But more recently, I've been challenged to go deeper. All right? And what I'm now getting about the Course in Miracles is that, Holy Spirit, Jesus wants us to go underneath that. What are the beliefs? What are the beliefs that are causing you to have judgment about your brother and sister? What are the beliefs that are causing me to be afraid of whatever it might be? We all have our fears. We all have our anxieties, right? Whether it's in personal relationships. That's another thing that I was struck with this week, is that I had this conversation with a very close friend. And as is his proclivity to do, a couple weeks ago we had a talk and he challenged me about some of my dynamics within the relationship. I said, I'm sorry. I said I would be more conscious of it. We had a talk again early last week and he criticized me again for the same things, and it triggered me. And not during the conversation, but I just went back into this place of negativity and critical thinking about myself. I felt terrible about myself. I felt awful. I felt like I just didn't want to live anymore. It was just awful how I felt. And actually, Leslie and Reverend Vincent were in class that night, and we read from the Course in Miracles, and that began to get me out of myself, And really the guidance that I got throughout that process was that, you know what, Peter, it has nothing to do with the other person. If you didn't have a belief about yourself, that, if I didn't have a system of self-criticism that's unconscious, and if I didn't have these negative beliefs about myself, then it wouldn't matter. It would be like, it would just bounce off me, right? I would be like a super ball just bouncing off. you know? So what it made me look at, and what I asked Spirit to do, is I said, okay, Spirit, I get it. I have too many critical thoughts going on in my mind and my beliefs. Please, I surrender, you know, I just went inside. Whatever critical beliefs I have about myself, please let it go. This habit of criticizing myself, which, as we've talked about before, comes from our early conditioning, right? Or manifested unconsciously before the separation or after the separation, right? So that's what I started to look at, is that, oh wow, that's the miracle now. The miracle now is that I for me, this is my experience. I go in and I have to look at that. You know, I have to look at those beliefs and ask for the beliefs to go, and be a willing partner in that. And you know, sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's a little bit uncomfortable. But again, the skeptic comes back, right? I'm willing to believe that what I believe about the Course in Miracles may change over time. I am now willing to believe that perhaps there is more for me to embrace than the Course in Miracles. In the Course in Miracles says that at some point you'll get to your study and you'll move on. And so I just have to embrace that. You know, I just have to embrace that possibility that, you know, there may be something else that complements my study of A Course in Miracles. Yesterday, I was inspired to go out and purchase the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's called. Okay. Yeah, something. Okay. I know it's an Indian holy book. And I was doing the laundry, I went to the bookstore, it was right there. So, you know, I'm just opening myself to the possibility that, well, I used to really believe the Course in Miracles was my final book as a teacher. But now I can believe that, you know, there might be other books that also inspire me. And that's okay. You know, that's okay. And I've been one here at the center. I've been really not for these other books that folks have been. I have to take responsibility for that. I've been one that's not I'm not big in favor of A Course in Love. I'm not very much in favor of The Way of Mastery. But at least now I can say, well, you know, I'm skeptical about those books, but I'm now open to the fact that there may be something in there that it offers others, and who knows, maybe it even is something for myself. Okay, so from today's reading that Reverend Alicia did for us today, it said, an honest question is a learning tool which asks for something that you do not know. And again, coming back to the idea of skepticism, the idea that I'm willing to say that I don't know. And that's what I was willing to say this week. Holy Spirit, I don't know how I'm supposed to practice the Course at this point in time. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to do it. And this is what, you know, again, these are the thoughts that came to me. And was basically saying, well, just assess it. And this is what the Course says. What are the results? Well, since I've been studying the Course in Miracles, I'm a happier person. I have more sanity. I have more peace. I'm more present in my relationships. I'm more effective at my job. I've shared here before also that in my 20s and early 30s, you know, I experienced a lot of clinical depression. I spent a lot of times fighting depression. And at this point in time, you know, that has basically disappeared. I don't really have the kind of depressions that I used to, or they move through much more quickly than they used to. So if you want to look at your spiritual development and what is happening for you, my encouragement and what I get from Holy Spirit is that we have to look at the results. What's the outcome? If the outcome is that it opens up our hearts, it opens up our minds, that we're willing to see things differently, and that we experience greater peace. And I know the Course says inner peace, but you know what? I want more love in my life. I want more joy in my life. I want less guilt. You know, that's a big one for me. I want less guilt in my life. Guilt, get the hell out of here. You know, that's what I want. I don't want as much guilt in my life. I know it's a modus operandi for me that I've been working on for years. But I'm telling guilt, go away. Okay? You're gone now. And that's what we have to do. We just have to be willing. Come to A Course in Miracles. Come to any spiritual study that we have. Assess it by the results, the outcome. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about a lot of things. And I don't know I don't know what truth is in them. I do know that conspiracy implies fear in a lot of levels. And I do know that we live in a fear-based world. But it's time to shift. It's time to shift off of that. It's time to embrace our inner skeptic so that we can experience more peace, more joy, less guilt. And that's my talk for today.